Today on Forbes, why the residential solar industry is in danger of imploding. Sitting at a mostly empty 20-person conference table in his Houston headquarters, William John Berger, CEO of Sova Energy International, looks relaxed and confident. The top of his crisp white shirt is unbuttoned, and no strands of gray yet spoil his shock of black hair. The 50-year-old is a Texas-born Aggie engineer. That is, he's a graduate of Texas A&M University, and he has a Harvard MBA. Berger has built Sova into the nation's second-largest residential solar power developer, with 2,000 megawatts of generation on the rooftops of 390,000 homes. And yet, he quips, if you like cliffhangers, quote, you've come to the right place. Sova has lost $330 million on $722 million in revenue in the last 12 months. Its shares are trading around $10, off 80% from their 2021 high. Wall Street is nervous about its bonds. Its $400 million 2021 senior unsecured debt issue, maturing in 2026, initially paid 5.75%, but now yields 14%, high even for junk. But the big test, Berger says, will come if there's a recession or difficulty raising money, which he fears more than high rates. In the worst case, he says, he could slash costs by 50%, stop seeking new business, and fire himself. The glory days for residential solar power in the United States weren't that long ago. In 2022, a record 6 gigawatts of peak generating capacity were installed on 700,000 rooftops, bringing total residential solar power to 40 gigawatts, nearly enough to power Los Angeles and Philadelphia combined. The boom was partly fueled by falling prices for solar panels and inverters as more countries, including the US, jumped in to compete against China. Topping it off, in August 2022, President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act, an orgy of renewable energy subsidies which boosts the solar tax credit from 26% to 30% and extended it through 2032, meaning Uncle Sam is on the hook for maybe $8 billion a year for at least a decade. Despite all this, the residential solar industry is in serious trouble. Sharply rising interest rates have sapped both growth in demand for new residential systems, which are typically financed, and the value of $21 billion in debt issued to install existing systems. High interest rates are what Sunlight Financial, a residential solar financier, blamed when it filed for bankruptcy in October. It went public in 2021 via a SPAC. 2 days after Sunlight sought Chapter 11 protection, San Francisco-based Sunrun, the largest player in residential solar, with annual revenue of $2.3 billion, said it was writing off $1.2 billion in goodwill, primarily from the $3.2 billion acquisition of the company Vivint Solar in 2020. The interest rate spike is drawing attention to other problems in an industry built not only on cheap money, but also on suspect accounting and a tax credit regime born in 2005 that has invited aggressive and in some cases fraudulent claims. Sunrun, whose stock is off 90% from its 2021 high, faces continuing pressure from short sellers who allege it has claimed inflated tax credits. As Warren Buffett famously observed, quote, "You don't find out who's been swimming naked until the tide goes out." In emailed responses to Forbes, Sunrun defended all its practices as proper. The shorts have some company. One industry whistleblower has told the IRS that inflated tax credit claims are endemic across the residential solar industry. The IRS isn't talking, but the whistleblower's attorney believes the agency is still investigating the man's claims, which could eventually earn him a fat reward of 15 to 30% of any funds recovered. Gordon Johnson, whose New York boutique equity research firm serves mostly short sellers, goes so far as to compare the residential solar industry's current peril to the subprime mortgage debacle of 15 years ago. He says, quote, "It's a debt Ponzi. They perpetually issue more debt to fund these projects that don't generate the cash they say." For full coverage, check out Christopher Hellman's piece on Forbes.com. You can also find this story in the October-November issue of Forbes magazine. This is Kieran Meadows from Forbes. Thanks for tuning in.